Hey folks, my name is Jason Brian Santos, and I am the teaching elder and minister of Word and Sacrament at Community Presbyterian Church in Lake City, Colorado, a small mountain town of about 400 people in an 8,700-foot elevation, and actually in the most remote county in the lower 48 states. I have been here for about 2.5 years, and prior to this, I was at the national office. I worked at the Presbyterian Church, working in the Presbyterian Mission Agency, and there I oversaw the area of Christian formation, and this is what led me to be connected to, in part, to this curriculum. And delighted that we can explore the doctrine of Sabbath. For me, it was a topic that I really had never really dealt much with most of my life, but during my dissertation work at Princeton Seminary, I was doing a PhD in practical theology, focusing on youth, young adult spirituality. And while I was doing that, I was studying the community of Taizé in France, which is a small ecumenical monastic community of about 110 brothers. It's been around since about 1940. But I was studying the 100,000 pilgrims that visit that community every year and how they might sustain their understanding of spiritual formation that comes to them in the community after they leave the community. And I started exploring the doctrine of Sabbath and reframing Taizé as a Sabbath community. And it led me deeper and deeper into the doctrine of Sabbath, to the point that I realized that I never really have fully appreciated in most of my Christian life the doctrine of Sabbath. I'm delighted that you are engaging in this material, and hope that some of my thoughts helps you shape your understanding of Sabbath and develop a new appreciation for it. As you delve into this topic of honoring Sabbath, I just wanted to kind of offer a few framing thoughts to help you think it through. If this is your first time ever really thinking about Sabbath, don't be surprised. In many, many years of research on the topic, interviewing people about what they thought about Sabbath, reading about what has been written about Sabbath, it's not surprising that it is both not really a concept that we deal with on an everyday basis, but also not something that we always honor. And actually, as we look back at Scripture and we think about the fact that in the Decalogue, when God gave the 10 Commandments to the people of Israel, one of the commandments was to honor the Sabbath and to keep it holy. And I know that we have often a cultural conception around what Jewish Sabbath is, or what a Sabbath is for an Israelite in that time, or even in our present day context. And for many of us, I know that it centers around the idea of legalism, like you can't do this, you can't do that. We see that eke into the Protestant world in extreme ways in Amish or Mennonite cultures, where there are strict rules around how you can exist and what you can do on Sabbath and what you're not allowed to do on Sabbath, and the way you exist in culture. In our modern day context, I'm sure if you were to ask a dozen of your friends, what do you think Sabbath is? The word rest would probably appear. People will talk about, it's a time of rest or taking a break from something. We talk about sabbaticals, being able to take us some time away from our employment situation or vocation to rejuvenate and reconsider things. But in general, Sabbath is something that we kind of know was a Jewish concept that we kind of morphed into something that we do now. And in many ways, for many churches across the country, Sabbath is just going to church on Sunday morning. We've given this specific time to be together with a Christian community, and maybe their efforts in that afternoon might be towards not doing work or yard work or work for the week ahead, but really to try to just sort of rest and restore themselves. For many, Sabbath is taking a walk in the woods, or going on a hike, or sitting with a hot cup of coffee and reading a book, or just hanging out in a hammock, or playing a game, or doing something that is not work. And each one of those concepts in some way grasps or touches upon a fuller, more robust understanding of Sabbath. But in the midst of all of that, sometimes we forget that our cultural conception of Sabbath is really not what should be the defining aspect. And so what we're going to try to do over the next few units is actually look at the scripture and how it leads us through this process of understanding what Sabbath is and how it functions in our life. In order to do that, you're going to use your curriculum sort of pages that look like this. We're going to look at forgetting Sabbath. And that means sort of letting go of some of those cultural understandings. And we'll talk about that in the next section. Remembering paradise. That's just sort of looking back into the scriptural context and saying, where did God introduce this idea of holy rest and Sabbath rest? And we'll look back to that paradise garden where God walked in the cool of the evening and dwelt with Adam in even a way that was unique and different and formative and meaningful and intimate. And then we're going to look at tasting our future. The unit on tasting our future is designed to help us reimagine what Sabbath could be in a communal and a festive, in a joyous way, not in a restrictive, sort of legalistic way that makes us feel oppressed, but one that actually liberates us to be the people of God and to exchange our understanding of what we think and the way we act and the way we are in the world. And finally, we're going to look at descending with gladness, that sense of how do we leave this sort of hope of what Sabbath is, or this ideal place where we are experiencing God's paradise and getting a taste of what was and a taste of what is yet to come. In the end, if I could sort of summarize what Sabbath is, it's not necessarily just rest. I think Sabbath can be something that we actually still do some work in. Sometimes pastors say, oh, I can't really have a Sabbath because I have to work on Sunday and I have to run the service and do all these things. And I do think that there are ways that we can reframe the work that we do as holy work. And I think in the end, if I could have you leave or even approach this conversation with one framing, it would be the idea that Sabbath is an exchange for our earthly rhythms for holy rhythms. It's an exchange for the things that we do on a regular basis in our everyday lives, in exchange for things that are meant to be festive and joyous and celebratory and serious and intentional and meaningful and formative. And when Sabbath actually takes this form, I think we'll find that our communities will be not only shaped by it, but will become an expression of the Sabbath community to a world that is never-endingly trying to stop and continue work perpetually. A society that wants never-ending production, and we are called to be people of rest, and we're called to be people who embrace this gift that God has given us that we call Sabbath.